setting the flight up. We will be with you shortly. Content. Just pulling up the live stream on a second screen so I can monitor any comments. Okay. Okay, let's have a look at our route today. Let's get rid of that off the screen first. Get there eventually. Okay, let's get this aircraft ready to fly. So we need to turn the batteries on. We need to turn the nav lights on. We will get the engine running before we program any of the avionics, because we want to get some electricity being generated. So let's just check. Actually, we've got left main usable. Actually, I haven't filled it up with fuel yet. Let's go and do that. We're going to put it on 75% of its load, which is good. Okay. Engine is running. It's on full speed on the RPM. Cowl flaps are open. Julia Carver says hi. Hello, Julia. And we can now go and turn on the... Actually, we'll leave the yoke off for the moment. Turn on the avionics. Turn on the alternator now. And while we're sat here ticking over, let's go and program our route in. So we are at Wickham EGTB, so we go flight plan, and we push this in to get the focus in here. We look at little nav map, we're going to EGHL Lasham first. So start rolling this. EGHL, so G H L, enter. Next waypoint. Actually, that wasn't the one we wanted, was it? We wanted to put EGTB in first. Oh, crikey. EGTB. You can tell I'm a bit rusty. I've been away for a few days and I've forgotten everything. Enter. There we go. EGHL, and then EGHF. Let's see if this is going to help us. EGHF, and then EGHJ for Bembridge. Then EGKC for Bognor Regis. And then EGKA for Shoreham. KA. EGMD for Lyd. GMC for Southend. And EGSX for North Weald. And EGTR for Elstree. Enter. There's our flight plan done. So we can push the button again on this if it will let us. There we go. Press the flight plan button. We can zoom out. We get some idea of where we're going next. Okay, so Julia says, I'm in the air in the B747-200 of my cousin who is with me as I'm flying to Kyrgyzstan. I'm flying past Cyprus. Oh, well done. I haven't flown the 747 for ages. 747-200. Okay, are we going to use the nav radios today? Let's have a look at the route. We're not really going to go near any VORs, I'm afraid, so we're not going to. We're just going to use GPS. So that does mean we're going to change this away from VLOC mode to GPS mode. So the HSI will reflect our actual course. So we're taking off runway 24, so we'll just... It's a shame that they removed the acceleration from the rollers. In the early versions of Flight Simulator there was acceleration. And our first course needs to be 198 degrees, which of course is the opposite end of the... So we'll just hold this on for a moment and let it spin around. I wish it went faster. There's no way of making it go any faster, is there? So I'm just turning the HSI round to 198. So there's 180, there's 190. 190 is going to be about there somewhere. Okay, so I think we're pretty much good to go. Flaps to take off position. Does this have chocks? Let's have a quick look outside and remind ourselves. No, it doesn't. But there's a fire brigade. That really instills you with confidence, doesn't it, when there's a fire engine waiting for you to take off. Okay. Parking brakes off. The weather is not wonderful today, I have to say. So, Rafael Uido, whatever his name is, an unpronounceable name, says you can hold shift to go in 10-degree increments, but I'm not sure. Let's try that. Let's just park the aircraft up a second. If I hold shift on while moving this, it's not massively better, to be honest. There's the normal speed. It's a bit better. Okay. So William Kelly's appeared. Some planes have rollers. Yeah, I guess it varies from aircraft to aircraft of how much they've programmed the acceleration into it. So I'm just taking the V35 for a spin really, because I've not flown it on a proper route at all. I've just messed around doing circuits. So before we get going, let's go back on the parking brake. I've not played with this at all, so let's go and set this for 3,000 feet and arm it. See, that's interesting, it won't let me arm it. Perhaps it will only do that in flight. Because we are going to go for... I bet this won't work either until we switch it on. which is slightly disconcerting, but we'll go. Into the bold blue yonder we go. It's a bit of a crosswind. I'm having to hold left rudder on the way down the runway, which is different to normal. I'm coming through 60 knots, starting to rotate, and we are in the air. There's a little bit of turbulence. Gear up. Accelerating through 80 knots. Flaps up. Start turning towards the HSI. So the HSI is actually working on the GPS, which it doesn't in all aircraft. So that's really nice. So let's just get this trimmed down as we climb out. Yeah, we might have to limit this to 1,000 feet, you know. We'll take it up to 3,000, see what it looks like on the flight plan. So let's go autopilot on. So it should be roll and climb mode. Let's go for nav mode. And let it follow the route it wants to. Let's also go for vertical speed mode. Engage, I guess, vertical speed. So then you use up and down to control vertical speed. So we've got vertical speed here. It's interesting. It's not behaving the way I expected, but I'm sure we'll be fine. Perhaps I have to engage vertical speed to do that. Yeah, it's working now. You can see the vertical speed is changing. Seems to be about 100 foot per click. Did I turn the lights on? I didn't, did I? Strobe and beacon, let's put them on. Okay, we'll cut the engine back to about 85%. As you can see, the weather is absolutely wonderful, which is going to make navigation something of a challenge. Yeah, I'm looking at Micah's comment. I think I'm going to have to climb. Well, I don't know what the cloud base is. I haven't even checked, which was a bit silly. We're coming up for 3,000 feet, and that's really not going to cut it, is it? So this would be interesting actually. We programmed 3,000 and engaged vertical speed, and yes, it has cut out. I didn't calibrate the altimeter, so I've just done that. It is lightening up, so yeah, the clouds are only about 4,000 feet anyway then. Let's see how we're doing on the route. So we're on our way to Lasham. So we can see through gaps in the cloud now and again, so it is kind of making it interesting. And we have got the GPS over here, so we can reduce the range on this and see where we are. So we'll look at the side. It's a very pretty aeroplane, isn't it? Not really the day to go flying, but I kind of like using the live weather, because you never know what you're going to get. I think the sounds in this are pretty accurate, just reading the live stream comments. And Carinado aircraft, apart from the Model 18, which was a bit of a dropped ball for them, seem to be very, very good. Okay, let's see how it descends. So if I set 2,000 feet in vertical speed mode, and then go down, it's not going to want to do it, is it? Perhaps I have to arm it first, and then engage vertical speed together. I haven't read the book, by the way. Yeah, it appears you have to arm it and then engage it. I mean, to be honest, we could fly by hand and just follow the instruments. It'd be much easier than messing around with the autopilot. I really do need to read the book on this thing. It may be that it won't descend any faster than a few hundred feet per minute, which would be a very good safety to have. So we're coming down slowly to 2,000 feet. If we have a look on Little Nav Map, we are approaching Lasham. If I go and run transmitter, then people can see that I'm flying. I always forget to enable it, so there we go. You can see the little red aeroplane there. So Lasham is 600 feet above sea level, so the ground isn't 2,000 feet below us, 1,400 feet below us, which you can kind of see. You can see houses peeking through the mist down below. So if we go to 1,600 feet, that's then 1,000 feet. Seems quite dangerous, doesn't it? You can see the hills poking through the mist. I think we're just coming through it. So let's have a look over on the GPS. We're still a couple of miles away. 7.5 miles to go. Got about a minute until we get there. Hopefully we'll be able to see the runway. We're at 1,600 feet now, which is 1,000 feet above the ground. And yeah, you can see things down there. Let's, just out of interest, I didn't turn the pitot heat on. I'm going to. It's not a very cold day, but I don't trust this aircraft. Okay, let's go manual and go down below the cloud and have a look. Just how bad is this cloud? Do we continue with it or do we change the weather? Because this is ridiculous. Yeah, the hills are in the cloud. It's ever so slightly ridiculous. I mean, we can use the GPS to fly it and we can see enough of the ground to fly low altitude. It's not much of a sightseeing flight, is it? Although there's not, to be honest, the rolling hills of England are pretty much the same in all directions. So, seeing as we have a working horizontal situation indicator with a course deviation indicator in the middle of it, we should be absolutely fine. We can fly directly towards the airfield. We are now 2.8 miles away. So what we'll probably do is overfly the airfield and then figure out what direction we're going to come in. Let's have a look at the wind on little nav map. So it's 10 knots from the northeast, so we need to really come in on the left and turn right to land. So we're deliberately turning across the airfield direction. Running at 50% throttle. So we're looking out into the mist to see if we can spot the airfield. We are 1 mile away. And here it is. Okay. So what we will do, rather than go straight in on that runway, we will circle to the left. It's a big runway, so we'll go overfly the end of the runway, circle to the left, going to do a touch and go. Throttle, hold the center line, rotate, gear up, flaps up, and our next leg. Should be 197 degrees. It's pretty much the same direction we were going before. Should we go up above the cloud this time by hand? So we are off to the right of the course we have marked here. Obviously we could just spin this to go the right direction, but That's interesting actually, that's not doing what it should. GPS mode, so yeah, this isn't doing what I thought it might. It's not working as a traditional meter at all, so we can't change the course and then fly into it as you would with a VOR. So it's literally only working as a CDI, not an HSI. So the only reason you change, when you're in GPS mode, the only reason you would change the omni-bearing selector is to make sense of it yourself. So we're just flying across to reacquire the track. Yeah, so it's got the degrees track, 196 degrees, and we're getting closer to that now, but the omni-bearing selector doesn't actually do anything. What yoke am I using? I'm using an Airbus stick. So I've decided to fly this by hand for the moment because it was a bit of a pain. I need to go and read the book on the autopilot modes. Oh, there's a rainbow down there, look. It's a strange weather day today. So coming up for 6,000 feet, we need to cut the mixture, which I've just done. And cut the engine back now to 80%. Let's trim the aircraft for level flight so I'm not having to hang on to it. So I'm just going to watch the vertical speed here. Okay, we've got 16 miles to go. Let's hope the weather on the coast is a bit clearer. Just reading the comment by Kieran in the live stream. I don't know. GTX 1050 flight sim game lags every now and again on landings and takeoffs. Yeah, I really don't know. It could be to do with something else, but 1050, you're really pushing that, aren't you, on the graphics? Although I know some people that run the 1070 with it on medium. Obviously this thing's a monster computer and it's running on ultra without really troubling it. I'm actually running in 4K, but I only broadcast in 1080p. So what I'm seeing on the screen is actually 4 times bigger than what I'm pushing out to YouTube, and it's actually smoother on my screen because OBS introduces some processing problems as well. It's a difficult one. Obviously the more horsepower you can throw at it, I mean, you can just see my flight sim has just paused. Either this is going to be a crash to desktop, which apparently are famously frequent at the moment, or it's the USB controller has just caused the simulator to re-look at all of the devices. That was the USB controller. There are massive bugs in Flight Simulator, both to do with the reading of the USB devices and to do with the multiplayer and to do with the data service. that are pumping the data. I mean, while it's easy to pick on Asobo and Microsoft and say, you know, why haven't they sorted this out? This game is doing more than any game ever has before. It's feeding gigabytes of data all the time. It's stunning, really, what they've managed to do. It's basically like a world simulator. Anyway, how are we doing? 11 miles out. We're just over 7,000 feet now. This thing climbs like crazy, doesn't it? I have a horrible feeling the airfield's going to be right underneath all of this. But we can see the coast, so we've got something to fly towards. We've got the CDI as well. The GPU in this machine, it's a NVIDIA 3080 RTX. The CPU is a i7, I think. This is about 3.6 gigahertz, maybe. I could run Specky and tell you, couldn't I? Hopefully it won't affect the sim too much. So there we go, it's an i7 at 3.6 gigahertz, 16 gig of RAM, 2 gig NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3080. I thought that graphics card had more RAM than that. I don't know how accurate that is. Let's have a look. Yeah, that's probably how much is left. If we go and run Task Manager. And go to Performance. I mean, yeah, I'm capping it at 30 frames a second, but you can see it's well within realms of use. So yeah, it's got 18 gigabytes of GPU memory. It's got 10 gig dedicated GPU, so I guess that's including swap in that reading. I thought it had 10. So FlightSim's using 8 of it. But yeah, the 3080 is very, very fast. You can see I'm running an Ultra, and it's smooth. Okay, so we need to descend. That warning you can hear there is just the manifold pressure. You're not allowed to go below a certain level. With the undercarriage up, it complains about it. So we're just flying down towards the coast. If we have a look, we've pretty much held the track. We're coming now to Lyon-Solent. Wind is from the northwest, 7 knots. I don't know if that's the same as what will be on the ground though, because we're at 7,000 feet. So 340 degrees, 3 knots on the ground. So I guess we want runway 05, so if we just fly along the runway, turn around and come back in. Hopefully we'll break out at the bottom of the cloud before we get to ground level. I do like this little V35. I think I'm going to be flying it quite a bit. I'm tempted. I haven't gone and upgraded my... I've got an Islander from Blackbox, and I haven't upgraded it yet. I'm tempted to go and get the upgrade because the new version 2 of the Islander, has the CFD, the Computational Fluid Dynamics upgrade in it that some of the other aircraft got a while ago. So yeah, it's an interesting turn of events, the CFD flight model abilities of Flight Simulator, it actually elevates it far above X-Plane. So we should be able to see the airfield down here. There's the runway. We are parallel with it and flying out to sea. Hopefully we'll get underneath the cloud and then turn back and come in. So watching the altitude come down, 3,500 feet, and descending rapidly. Keeping an eye on the indicated airspeed over here. Essentially on instruments now. Luckily we know it's the sea underneath us, so we don't have to worry too much about hitting it until we get to 0 on the altimeter. Okay, that's the coast of the Isle of Wight in front of us. Don't need to worry about that, we'll be turning back before we get there. Let's make the turn back towards the airfield we were heading for. Still descending. There's the runway. So what we're going to have to do is a couple of turns to slow down. We have some reference now for the sea, which is good. Gear and flaps are down. Okay, get this touch and go done, and then where do we go after this actually? We're going south to Bembridge on the Isle of Wight. There's some scenery anomalies here. Get it back on the centre line. And airborne. So we want to be going 156 degrees, so we'll do a right turn and we'll change the course to 156 as we turn, just as a visual reference more than anything. Just out of interest, Okay, this aircraft doesn't appear to have any kind of gyro drift on the HSI, the horizontal situation indicator or compass. Just reading the live stream. So yeah, Robbie says I bought an RTX 3070 a few months ago, and I had to, and if I'd wanted, I could have bought a 3080 for the same price. The cheapest, well, for the last few years, the cheapest way to buy a high-end graphics card is to buy a new computer, by quite some distance. The problem with all the GPUs is there is still a worldwide chip shortage. Some of the materials used in chip production have been in short supply for a very long time. And PC manufacturers get first dibs on the cards. They've got agreements in place with the likes of Nvidia, which is why you can get computers with an Nvidia card in, for example, much more cheaply than you can buy an Nvidia card on its own. If you go and have a look at the likes of Novatech, where my computer came from, you'll be quite surprised at the price of a full system versus the price of a GPU on its own. And when you bear in mind that a system is actually a balanced suite of components, you're probably better off waiting, saving your money up, and buying a brand new system. Especially when you take into account things like NVMe hard drives. Well, they're not really hard drives, are they? But NVMe storage devices, and they, just how fast they are compared to even an SSD. I think this machine has 2 storage devices in it. One of them is an SSD that runs at about 3,000 megabytes a second. The NVMe drive runs at 7,500 megabytes a second. It's nuts. The difference is incredible between the 2 of them. I only run Flight Sim on the SSD. I keep the NVMe as smaller, and I use it for Windows itself, which keeps the operating system nice and snappy. The interesting thing I find about Flight Sim is that it is not CPU dependent at all. So if we go and open up Task Manager, for example, and okay, this is a ridiculous machine, but look at the CPU, look at the cores. They're hardly being hit versus the GPU, which is taking all the strain. Okay, so here's the airfield. So let's have a look at the wind on Little Nav map. So wind, so yeah, we're going to fly down the far side of the airfield and come back in for a landing. So this is Bembridge on the Isle of Wight. So we're just descending. We'll lose the speed on the turn out over the water. I mean pre-built system units from third parties. I don't mean laptops. Laptops are a silly game to play. If you want to play video games, you're going to pay double. But if you just buy a system unit from a manufacturer, so as I mentioned, Novatech is a manufacturer of PCs. But yeah, if you want a gaming laptop, you're going to pay silly money. You're far better off buying a normal PC for the value for money and performance you'll get, and future upgradability. Okay, gear down. bounce that time. Gear up. Flaps up. Isle of Wight's a pretty place, isn't it? I don't agree with you, Micah, about them cheapening out on parts. If you go to somewhere like Novatech, you can control the configuration of the box, and you can pick and choose the bits that go inside it, and they'll put it together and test it for you. But they will present suites of components that go together well as pre-built options, but you can easily configure them yourself. And most kind of, not independent, but most smaller manufacturers will do that kind of thing. So 66 degrees over to Bognor Regis, 18 miles. So let's stay fairly low this time. Let's get the engine back. Just trimming the aircraft out. Uh, 66. Let's move the course marker on the HSI. There or thereabouts. So the reason it's showing that the flight path is off to the right on the HSI is, as you can see, the flight path is off to the right because we did a right turn off the wrong way and it's point to point. So we will intercept it slightly if we fly across it. You'll see the needle is coming in already. So let's go and switch on autopilot. Should we spin? Let's try this trick then, holding shift on. Yeah, it doesn't really affect it too much. And you get the old problem where if you move the mouse off the knob, then it goes flying off of its own accord. So let's just go for altitude hold mode, which it's already doing, and heading mode. So we're about 1,600 feet over the sea, which is fine. 140 knots, and we are en route to Bognor Regis. We could go and have a look at Goodwood, I guess. It's all grass runways at Goodwood, though. I don't know if you've ever seen a Goodwood Festival of Speed, but there's a racetrack around the edge of Goodwood as well, so it's a racing car track. It's quite cool. Anyway. Yeah, just reading the live stream comments about it's always going to be cheaper not to pay for labour. The advantage of getting somebody that knows how to do it is they do it all day long. And if you don't, and you make one mistake, you've lost a couple of £100 worth of hardware, depending on what you've broken. I've actually seen this happen. There's a motherboard here, behind me. We're not sure what's wrong with it. And without getting somebody to look at it that's got a test meter and knows what to check, we reassembled a computer that had gone wrong before, and put a brand new £100 worth of GPU in it with twin NVIDIA 970 cards inside it. We got everything wired up and running, and then realised one of the NVIDIA power supplies wasn't wired up correctly, so we powered it all down, plugged it all back in, and the power supply immediately fried itself, which was either an issue with the motherboard or one of those NVIDIA cards. But yeah, we lost £100 worth of, or $130, $140 worth of power supply in seconds for no apparent reason. And that's the advantage of working in a workshop where you've got all of the testing kit to be able to go and test every single component. If you haven't, and you know, who has that at home? Nobody does. I would rather pay the small amount of extra, and then there's the liability as well, that if something does go wrong with the machine, it's got a guarantee associated with it. If it's a component, that becomes much more difficult to prove. I have built PCs for myself in the past. I remember back many, many years ago when Grand Prix 3, was it, that came out? Or Grand Prix 4, the Jeff Crammond game? I built a PC to play it. This plane does look good, doesn't it? You see it's being thrown around with the wind. You don't notice it when you're sat inside it. Well, you can see a little bit. I haven't got FS Realistic installed, obviously, so you're not being thrown around too much. So, next airfield we're heading for is Bognor Regis, so we could go straight in runway 05, so let's start getting rid of some speed now. We should see it then straight just off to our line of sight here. How many miles? We're about 5 miles out. Looking for the airstrip. Is that it over there? I think it is. On the far edge of the town. So here's the town. Am I looking in the wrong place? I think I might be. So there's a road. I'm looking too far out, aren't I? Here it is. I knew I was looking too far out. Okay. Autopilot off. We'll circle round, losing speed as we turn. So get down. Down. It's a small airstrip, isn't it? You have to be careful. Let's go for full flaps this time. Yeah, just reading the comments about FS Realistic, it doesn't work on all aircraft, which is the main reason I haven't bought it. I tried it out on the free trial. her up. That was really pushing it to get in as slowly as we did. We were on the limiter, on the stall warning, weren't we? Okay, so we're just climbing out. Just holding it on the throttle. 81 degrees over to Shoreham, so we're basically full at the coast to Shoreham. So let's get the coast in view and do this VFR. The weather's clearing, isn't it? The further east we go, the better the weather's getting, although it does look pretty horrific out in the far distance. Okay, let's pull the throttle back. So plane's just trimmed out. There's no autopilot on, I've just pointed it in the general direction and let go, and it's holding that direction fairly well. Should we turn the yaw damper on and see how much difference it makes? So yaw damper on. Let's try it actually. The yaw damper should stop the plane from swaying too much. And it is, look, it's pretty good. So then we'll turn the yaw damper off. Yeah, I think it's there in button name only. I don't think it's actually doing anything, which is pretty much par for the course with Carenado, to be honest. Just trimming it down slightly to stop it climbing all the time. When you hear professional pilots talking about trimming, they will talk about the shadows falling on the cockpit, and you know when you've trimmed it accurately that the shadows stop moving. And obviously we can watch the needle as well. But they generally use the shadows moving across the cockpit as their primary guide. Okay, how far have we got to go along the coast? So we're just going to go past Worthing, and then there's Shoreham. Following Shoreham, go across to Lydd. I think we might actually stop at Shoreham today, because I had a comment the other day actually that people don't tend to like live streams that go on and on and on for too long. So we'll do a circuit of Shoreham, come in, and we'll call it a day there. Keep it fairly short. We've seen this aircraft working. It's pretty cool. I didn't quite understand how the autopilot worked with the vertical speed. I need to read the book on that. It may be that it will only descend at sort of 500 feet a minute max, and that might be what we were seeing. It just seemed a little bit, there was very little feedback on what you were doing. Just reading the live stream chat. I wouldn't say I know what I'm doing. I've just been doing this a long time, that's all. I do know several real-world pilots, and obviously you pick up bits and pieces from them along the way. But there's a lot I miss out of my videos to do with real-world procedures. And, you know, unashamedly, especially with the big jets, I don't go through all of it because it takes hours. You know, if you want to go and do all your fire checks and everything, you can. And the big jets in Flight Sim, you know, it's all working in the cockpit to go do those checks. Right, so we can see the airfield coming. It's Shoreham coming up. You can see the grass strip there. We're going to fly. Actually, the wind was coming from the north, wasn't it? So we could fly straight in this end. So I'm just getting rid of some speed, get the gear down. Let's just skid sideways in the cockpit so we can see the airfield. Flaps down. Full flaps. Should we have a look at this with the gear down, just so you get to see it. So let's center the view up with F and then space to sit up. See over the nose. Watching the airspeed now. Watching the orientation of the runway relative to us. Keeping an eye on the centre line and the speed and the throttle. And just fly in. It's a bit of a crosswind, but not much. Right on the stall limit, isn't it? Okay, Shoreham's a bit interesting. The taxiway goes all the way around in a big loop to the other end of the parking, so we'll follow it round. So it flaps up. We're not going to go on the grass, we're going to follow the paved taxiway. Parking for the aircraft is just down in front of those big hangars you can see to the right. Windsock. Usually there's a few aircraft dotted around down here. Oh, there's one. Should we spin round and come in alongside him? Parking brake on. Okay. We just flew that entire flight with the cow flaps open. Although we were doing touch and goes, I guess, so didn't hurt too much. What do we do? What do we do? We pull the mixture back, which will use up any fuel. We then turn the magnetos off. Whoops. If I can even grab them with the mouse. Lights off, strobes off, pitot heat off, alternator off. Leave the battery on for the moment. Go and turn off the avionics. Interestingly, when we started the aeroplane, we didn't use the pump. You're supposed to, but it doesn't. It isn't really modelled that accurately to make you need to bother. We should turn the fuel back to off. I'm not sure if you can. Oh yes, you can. And there we go. Time to get out of the aeroplane. I have to say it's incredibly well modelled. It almost looks like a photograph sometimes. Oh hello. Here comes the fuel lorry to do some donuts in the parking lot. But yeah, it's incredibly well modelled, isn't it? Well, I'm impressed anyway. Maybe I'm easily impressed. Okay, I'm going to call it a day there, and I will see you all again soon. Thanks for watching along, people who joined in the live stream and asked questions along the way. Subscribe if you haven't. I'm not very good at doing this whole marketing bit, but apparently there's a bell icon at the top corner you can click. It tells you when I'm online. Okay, anyway, I'll see you again soon.